Welcome to Celluloid Chronicles, a historical movie podcast. I'm Birdy, and I welcome you back to a very special Scenic outtake where we're catching up on some history that we couldn't quite get to with Late Night with the Devil. Brick and I had so much fun with this movie and covering the vibe of the 1970s world of late night entertainment, basically. And there was so much that we could have covered, even though this movie was completely fictional, but it just touched on so many things. So I'm here today to make sure that some of the more important points that we could have discussed historically get covered. I'm going to take you through a couple actual outtakes from the episode that I had to cut. And then I'm going to walk through the Grand Guignol, the theater in Paris that is kind of a macabre special theater that existed for over 60 years, I believe. I actually had a bit of a actual outtake from the episode for that one, but since I'm going to be repeating a lot of that here, I just scrapped that part and I'll start from the beginning. But first, I wanted to walk through about 3 different outtakes that Brick and I covered very briefly, but are kind of important to that vibe and zeitgeist of the 1970s. So first, I'm going to talk about media groups. There was a point in the movie where Jack and Leo are talking about different media groups and the president of those groups kind of paying attention to the show so he can get renewed. And it was kind of confusing talking about like the Cavendish group, but there's also the channel UBC. So I do just a very brief discussion of how that kind of works. And I'm going to put that here.
Anyways, Leo's letting Jack know that the new president of the Cavendish Company, its production company, is in the audience with his wife and the head of Airtime.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
And I was a little confused. I don't know. So they seem to be separate from the UBC guy. I don't know.
So that's like different production company. Like, so you can see, obviously Cavendish is not real. I looked it up.
Okay. And I know
looked it up. There's plenty of companies called Cavendish. There's no Cavendish group.
Gotcha. Okay. And I know UBC is just a play on ABC. So.
Yeah, it's a play on ABC. None of these companies are real, but like different companies can be owned by so I assume it's kind of like ABC is, I think, owned by Disney now.
Probably they own everything else.
It's kind of like that where there's these channels that are owned by larger companies.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So like if he doesn't get signed for UBC, they might be able to sign him with somebody.
Yes. Move him to another channel. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes more sense.
It's companies within companies.
Gotcha. That makes more sense because I was trying to how does this work? But okay.
It's complicated monopolies.
All right.
Yep. Okay, we're back. And then another thing I briefly touched on was the idea of power couples, which definitely existed before the 70s. I'm thinking Sonny Bono and Cher, they were definitely kind of in the 60s. But I talk about a few different power couples that existed in that time frame in the 70s that Jack and Madeline kind of represent, I guess you could say. I'll put that here. It's like one thing I didn't get into just because there was so many. It was there was so much that I could have touched on in like the 70s era, which was like the beginning of Power. celebrity couples, power couples. There was quite a few, and I thought they were kind of hearkening to that as well, like power couples that played off each other. The actress, the talk show host, the, like
Sonny and Cher.
Directors and actresses, like usually.
Was it Roman Polanski and Sharon? Is it Sharon Tate that he was married? No.
Bianca Tate? No.
Who was Sharon Tate married to?
Roman Polanski.
That was okay.
Yeah. That was the thing. So these power couples. So I think they were kind of alluding to that, and they would be inspiration for each other. So. And then finally, before I dive into the Grand Guignol, me and Brick talked briefly about a book that we'd heard called Murderland, and how all these serial killers kind of were running about in the 1970s, and that kind of added to that macabre, bleak, and paranormal adjacent criminal vibe of the 70s as well. So I'll put that here. Which I still need to read that book, Murderland. The one that my favorite murder mentioned, Georgia mentions, that talks about how the toxic fumes in the air, the lead fumes in the air might have caused the serial killer pandemic, basically.
Well, and I don't know if they cover this in that, or if it's just the lead, but there is the theory too that when they used to spray DEET.
Yes, that's in there too.
Okay,
that's
and
in
I
there
remember
too. There
my
was
mom
a few
talking
things
about that. How they would my mom said that the trucks would come through the neighborhoods and the kids would run behind the truck and play in the fog.
Some people of color, I remember talking about that, especially in rural areas. They'd run behind the trucks and the smoke and stuff. Anyway, so there could be a whole pandemic on that, but. All right. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about the Grand Guignol. The Grand Guignol kind of came up in the movie kind of from I guess you could say a bit of a throwaway line at one point. I really wish I'd snapped it when I was watching it again, but I had never heard of this theater. And so I kind of did this weird little deep dive on it. It was spectacular and very fascinating. So I figured I'd cover that, especially since a lot of people might have not have heard of this, but it actually influenced a lot of our modern day horror and splatter films and things like that were influenced by this theater style. So the Theatre du Grand Guignol was a theater in Pigalle district of Paris. It opened in 1897 and stayed open until 1962, and it specialized in horror shows. Its name is often used as kind of a general term for graphic, amoral horror entertainment, a genre which was actually popularized in the Elizabethan and Jacobean theaters. For instance, Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus and Webster's The Duchess of Malfi and The White Devil. And that kind of reverberates all the way to today's horror splatter films, murder films, etc. So when it was founded, Le Theatre du Grand Guignol, literally the theater of the great puppet, it was dedicated to naturalism in theater from the start. Its more popular name, Grand Guignol, has become nearly synonymous with all things gory. Again, I've not heard of this term, but I'm sure if you're in theater, if you're in kind of the entertainment world, I'm sure it's much more prominent. The founder was Oscar Matanier, who initially planned on following his father into policing, but became a secretary for a local precinct. He was inspired by works of the naturalist Émile Zola, and Matanier began writing short stories and plays about the things he saw on the job. So true crime definitely influenced his work. His original intention for the Grand Guignol was to kind of showcase plays in that naturalistic style, seeking for dramatic action and wanting it to mirror real life as closely as possible. And after a particularly violent show depicting a murder became a big hit, the brand of the theater was born. But because the theater now specialized in both horror and naturalism, the shows presented on stage were notoriously graphic. They often drew from crime scene reports from the newspaper and stories around the city. And they made sure that those stories remained anchored in reality and rather than venturing into the realm of the supernatural. And through a special combination of novel special effects and traditional staging techniques, these shows gave a haunting mirror to the darker side of humanity and telling tales of truthful terrors. Now, doctors were employed at every performance, partly as publicity and partly due to the occasional fainting or vomiting of a viewer. So, the audience was literally traumatized while they were watching these, but they were there for it. So rumors actually claim that the theater had at least 2 swoonings per night. And on one occasion, one of these was reported to be the very doctor intended to care for the squeamish patrons. Some of the more boisterous spectators are said to have been so vocally opposed to the action that the actors broke character to quiet them down. Now, since its dissolution in the early 60s, many theaters worldwide have produced revivals, adaptations, and tributes to the work of the Grand Guignol. Entire theaters, such as the Vigor Mortis of Brazil, have been created in tribute to the theater. Its original works have been translated into a number of languages, including Italian and English, and the San Francisco company Thrill Peddlers have produced both original Grand Guignol scripts as well as musicals inspired by these works. Experts also point to modern plays such as Ghost Stories and The Woman in Black as being inspired by the legendary company. The marks on modern theater left by the Grand Guignol are as profound as they are bloody. I think it's important to talk about some of the people that were in kind of associated with the theater and helped create what it was. So obviously, Oscar Matatier was the original founder and original director. And under that direction, the theater produced plays about a class of people who are not considered appropriate subjects in other venues: sex workers, criminals, street urchins, and others at the lower end of Paris's social echelon. Then there's André Antoine, who is the founder of the Theatre Libre and a collaborator of Matanier. His theater gave Matanier a basic model to use for the Grand Guignol. Then there's Max Mari, who served as a director from 1898 to 1914, and Mari shifted the theater's emphasis to the horror plays it would become famous for and judged the success of a performance by the number of patrons who passed out from shock. The average of 2 faintings each evening kind of came to life under his direction. Marais discovered André Delorde, who would become the most important playwright for the theater. André Delorde was the theater's principal playwright from 1901 to 1926, and he wrote at least 100 plays for the Grand Guignol, such as The Old Woman, The Ultimate Torture, and A Crime in the Madhouse, and many more. He collaborated with experimental psychologist Alfred Binet to create plays about insanity, one of the theater's favorite and frequently recurring themes. Which could kind of be problematic, but that's what it was. Camille Choiset served as the director from 1914 to 1930. He contributed his expertise in special effects and scenery to the theater's distinctive style. Then there's Paula Maxa, who is one of the Grand Guignol's best-known performers. From 1917 to the 1930s, she performed most frequently as a victim and was known as the most assassinated woman in the world. During her career, Max's characters were murdered more than 10,000 times in at least 60 different ways and was raped at least 3,000 times. Then there's Jacques Jouvin, who served as the director from 1930 to 1937. He shifted the theater's subject matter, focusing on performances not so much on the gory horror, but psychological drama, which I definitely would be for. Under his leadership, the theater's popularity waned, and after World War II, it was not well attended. But I feel like that could be from, the war, maybe more so than just his directorship. And it was after that the wane happened and then ultimately closed in 1962. I'm going to quote from the New York Times from March 17th, 1957, which was toward the end of the run of the theater, but kind of really speaks to some of that history. And I quote, "Every night in an old somber street off Montmartre, some 250 peaceful citizens are the horrified eyewitnesses of 4 murders, part of the longest-running crime wave in existence. For 60 years now, torrents of blood have flowed, eyes have been gouged, faces singed by fire or disfigured by vitriol, bodies dissolved in acid baths, hands, arms, and heads chopped off, and women raped and strangled on the Rue Chaptal, and yet the police have never once thought fit to intervene. For all this glory business takes place on the diminutive stage of the Theatre du Grand Guignol. The Grand Guignol is more than a theater. It is a tradition, an institution, like the Eiffel Tower, the Folies Bergère, and Maxim's. Like them, it has long been a favorite attraction for foreigners, especially English, Scandinavian, German, and American, and provincials, and also for the shopkeepers and employees who live in that quarter of Paris as if it were an isolated village. Some connoisseurs fear that the tradition is in decline, that it no longer can compete with the illusions of the movies or the real horrors of the 20th century. Still, few Parisians omit paying a visit at one time or another to the Grand Guignol, if only as a nostalgic tribute to a glorious history. That history began in 1895 when Oscar Metier, formerly secretary to a commissariat de police, bought the old abandoned chapel, which to this day has housed every Grand Guignolesque crime. The walls which once heard the whispers of praying nuns now resound with the shrieks of tortured victims. Prior to that, the building had served as a workshop for an artistic blacksmith and as studio for Georges-Antoine Rochegrosse, a leading academic painter of the 80s. I assume they mean the 1880s. Back to the quote. "The setting has remained unchanged. Wooden angels hang stiffly from the paneled ceiling. Gothic tracery climbs along the doors. Fleur-de-lis dot the walls. The loges look vaguely like confessionals and the balcony seats like pews." It was in this inspirational setting that the visions of hell were set loose, not by Metenier, but by his successor, Max More, who took over in 1897. Metenier, a contemporary of Zola and Maupassant, was satisfied to offer his public slice-of-life plays. Marie invented, you might say, the slice of death. Tortures and executions, he reasoned, have always excited people. During the French Revolution, spectators had flocked to watch the guillotine in action, but they had been given little opportunity for such vicarious thrills since. The Grand Guignol shrewdly cashed in on their frustration. Torture has been forbidden since King Louis XVI, says a character in Grand Guignol classic. Too bad, is the reply. Thanks to the Grand Guignol, those horrible pleasures were made freely available once again. By 1900, it was a thriving enterprise. It had found its formula, the hot and cold shower, 2 horror plays alternated with 2 light comedies, as well as its specialized authors, particularly a mild-mannered, affable librarian named André Delorde. End quote. All right, so that's my little outtake on the Grand Guignol. I would love to go visit that place. I'm sure Brick would go every day if we had one. First thing she asked was, "Is this still around?" And I had to tell her no. She was incredibly disappointed. All right, so from there, I have a couple fun outtakes. Brick and I discussed who the hell is the skeleton guy in the movie. He wasn't super relevant and to the history of the story, so I ended up having to keep that as an outtake for time purposes, but I will insert that here. Who the fuck is the skeleton guy?
Okay, so a lot of people believe that the skeleton guy in the audience, because everybody's wearing costumes, but the skeleton guy, they believe is a member of the Grove coming to check because...
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But he's not giving too much away, or...
That I'm unsure about, because so one of the theories I was reading said that it's because the contract is due, but the contract was due when Madeline died.
Yeah, so he already paid.
Right.
Yeah.
But this kind of plays into one of the theories, the one that I said I wanted to talk to you about, was that obviously Abraxas has some connection to the Grove.
Yeah.
Since, they saw each other there. But it's almost like all of this was kind of planned from the beginning, and it's kind of a theory that Lily survived specifically so that her sacrifice could be broadcast so that as many people would see it as possible, because as Diabo explained, if you witness the sacrifice, you are beholden to Abraxas. So it's not even a matter of choice.
Wow. And obviously we don't want to I could go on for hours about
the next time we hang out, we absolutely can.
Yeah, absolutely. Outside of this, because obviously our audience is here for the history and we are just getting into movie theory at this point, but we highly recommend this movie. There's so much here. And then we actually talked about another movie we'd like to cover at some time, but kind of falls into this time realm of the 70s, which is Christine. I'm sure there's plenty of tidbits we can go over there. And I'll put that here.
There is one from the same period that I would like to do someday. Christine.
Christine.
Not the car.
Oh.
The news reporter that killed herself on air. They made a movie about her and like the weeks leading up to it. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
And it's kind of a tough watch, but that is one I'd like to do someday.
Okay. Yeah. That's we got to prepare for that one. Yeah. But, and then finally, this was more just fun, and Brick and I were discussing where people go into a movie thinking something's real, or seeing something on television and thinking it's real, and just those types of people who can't discern reality from fiction, which I feel like is an ongoing problem even today. Brick tells a funny story about a friend who thought The Ring was real, as in the movie with Samara where she crawls out of a well and through a TV screen. Yeah, I'll let her tell that here.
I just want to throw it real quick, and you can cut this out. I just need to at least tell you. So talking about thinking that it was real, when The Ring came out, and I asked my friend Shanna to go with me, and we were on the bus, and I do not embarrass easy, but I asked her if she wanted to go see the movie with me, and well, what is it about? And I said, blah, blah, blah. And you watch it and you die 7 days later. She starts yelling at me on the bus about, why would you take me to a movie that's going to kill me? And I kept trying, like, Shanna, no, and she just was going on, and like to the point that like people were getting uncomfortable. It was ridiculous. And then she finally shut up, and I was able to like, okay, no, that's not what this is about. And she goes, well, why didn't you tell me? Yeah.
I could go on about people. Like, it's just sad. It's a sad state of, also speaks to our today world of like lack of critical thinking. Lack of thinking.
Lack of critical thinking, and just accepting something on its face.
Right.
Not researching anything. Just like, I saw it on the Facebook.
Honestly, that's next level. You're literally telling her about a movie.
Whatever.
About a movie.
Yeah.
And she assumed it was real?
And that somehow they were showing it to people in theaters.
Yeah.
We're gonna go pay, $5.75. I'm old. Go pay like $5.75 to go watch this movie that's gonna kill us in a week.
Incredible. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me on this little excursion of Outtakes. And I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'm super looking forward to sharing our first several episodes with you as we count down the day to our launch date of November 19th, which will already have happened at this point. And please let us know what you think and any suggestions or even on content and format. We'd love to take any feedback you're willing to give us. So thank you for listening to Celluloid Chronicles, a historical movie podcast. Please like and subscribe to us wherever you listen, and we hope you join us again soon. And always remember, live like you're making history. I'd be that person.
Yeah, you would.
I'd be like,
you would be the one, like the Armageddon is coming and you'd be like, I gotta send this email real quick.
I have to send this email because just in case I have to pay my bill next month, I'm getting my fucking paycheck. Thank you very much. Because my luck, the apocalypse and the rapture would come. I would not go, and the other person on the other side of my mortgage payment will be sitting there saying, well, I have to collect this payment, and I would be sitting on the other side and I'm like, well, I have to pay this mortgage payment.
Like, sir, the rapture, fuck you, pay me.
That's my luck. That's my life.
Sorry, man, but your bill is still due. Yes.
Anyway. Yeah.
But that would absolutely be you.
Uh-huh.